All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Pleased to see everyone here, and hopefully we have quite a few viewers watching online as well today. Let's start by, if you don't mind, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Today is November 28th, 2023, and this is the time and place for a workshop before the Nevada Gaming Control Board for discussion regarding the Control Board's Audit Division and Tax and License Division, standards, processes, and procedures. This workshop has been properly noticed in accordance with Nevada's open meeting law. And let's start by our public comment section. This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so at this time. Comments by each person are limited to 3 minutes as a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. If board members ask questions of the speaker, that time will not be taken away from the speaker's 3 minutes. If speakers have any handouts, please provide them to the enforcement agents in the room. Pursuant to state open meeting law, matters brought to the board's attention cannot be acted upon, but we are happy to hear comments from the public as well as from my fellow board members. We do not have a court reporter for today's workshop. However, this meeting is being audio-video recorded and will be maintained for open meeting law purposes. So please speak clearly into the microphone when you provide testimony today. Let's first go to, do we have Carson City, Jesus? There we go. Thank you. Is anyone in Carson City wishing to provide public comment this afternoon? Seeing none, let's go here to Las Vegas. Anyone in Las Vegas wishing to provide public comment? And if you plan to provide other testimony, you don't have to do that at this time. You can provide that during the actual workshop. Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public comment section of the meeting. And that then brings us to our discussion. I'd like to first turn to Dr. Watkins. Dr. Watkins is responsible board member for both the Audit Division and the Tax and License Division. So you have both of the divisions on today's agenda. Is there anything you'd like to provide comment to the public today?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It has been my pleasure to oversee both the Tax and License and Audit Division here at the Gaming Control Board. And I have been overseeing these divisions, the Tax and License Division, since about June of 2022, when Mr. Chief Langsbath was first appointed. Wasn't it June of 2022? May. And then I have been overseeing the Audit Division since about the time I was appointed at the board in May of 2021. So it's been a very long time that I've been overseeing audit and had an opportunity to work with former Chief Colvin and then transition to our now Chief Fremont. Both of whom have done an amazing job. So I'm really looking forward to the workshop today and seeing what comes up.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins. That microphone working better, Jesus? Yep. Testing 1, 2. Are we working? Still not. Yep. Mic
and
is on.
I can talk a little bit more about my role here. If you, is it working? So part of my role at the Gaming Control Board, my oversight obligations with the Audit Division include sending out violations. So if you're like violation letters, so if you're a licensee, then you probably have, or you may have received one of those letters signed by me. In addition, I also will respond to some of the variation requests. And I will also speak policy issues with the chief of the division, Chief Fremont, and then if necessary, we will speak with the chair about those issues. As far as taxes and license is concerned, I review outlines and you'll sign off on those and talk policy issues with Chief Langsbath, the current chief of the Tax and License Division as well. Does that pretty much cover it? Okay, ready.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Watson. And this workshop workshops we've held for the other divisions of the Game Control Board. As you'll see, why don't I just switch microphones? How's that, Jesus? Good. Let's switch this one out. Thank you, Judge. I was saying that this workshop, similar to the workshops we've held for the other divisions, I am pleased to say that the other board members have agreed to sit down here in the well today because we want this to be a true conversation, a true interaction with the industry, more of a conversation rather than us being up on the dais. And the only thing that I ask, as I've asked through all these workshops, is if you come up with a complaint, also come up with a solution. And so with that, I'd like to turn first to Chief of our Audit Division, Chief Fremont, and have you provide a little intro for us on what you have as far as your division and what you think we'd be discussing with the public today. And then after we do that, we'll have the Chief of the Tax and License Division, Chief Linksavath, come up, provide a similar introduction, and then we will take questions from the public regarding either the Audit Division or the Tax and License Division. Chief Fremont, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hendrick, Member Watkins, and Judge Assad. For the record, I'm Thomasina Fremont, Chief of the Audit Division. We have with us today our three deputy chiefs. We have Peggy Chung, who's here in the Las Vegas office, Rusty LeBlanc, also in the Las Vegas office, and we have Deputy Chief Carrie Bradley down from our Reno office. Thank you for flying down for this today. The Audit Division appreciates this opportunity to have an open discussion with the industry regarding our standards, processes, and procedures. Before we open up the discussion, the Audit Division is excited to announce significant changes that we anticipate to the administration of the live entertainment tax in early 2024 due to how this tax has evolved over the years. To provide some background, the live entertainment tax began as the cabaret tax decades ago, administered by the Gaming Control Board. The board developed strong minimum internal control standards to ensure that the Audit Division could perform proper audits in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. As entertainment expanded beyond the cabarets, the tax became known as the casino entertainment tax, but was still limited to casino entertainment. Eventually, in 2004, the legislature decided to expand this tax to capture entertainment outside of the casino industry. The tax became known as the live entertainment tax, and the administration of this tax was bifurcated between the Nevada Gaming Control Board and the Department of Taxation. At that time, there were many elements that went into the calculation of taxable revenue in the casinos, such as food and beverage, merchandise, as well as admissions. Due to the complicated nature of the calculation of the tax, the board maintained their strong mix, which provided proper controls of the calculation of this revenue. Then in 2015, the legislature simplified the live entertainment tax. Food, beverage, and merchandise were no longer subject to the tax unless they were part of a required purchase to gain admissions to the venue. So this just left us admissions. This streamlined calculation is more in line with the venues administered by the Department of Taxation. Therefore, to provide parity with how the Department of Taxation administers this tax, the Audit Division recommends repealing the live entertainment mix and issuing new live entertainment guidelines. These guidelines will provide minimal requirements for the recordation of live entertainment revenue. Once the new guidelines are effective, internal audit and the CPAs will no longer be required to perform any work regarding live entertainment revenue, and the Audit Division will no longer perform full compliance audits of this revenue, but instead will perform a simple revenue audit. Lastly, we also recommend an amendment to the NAC, which will remove the requirement for licensees to submit internal control systems related to live entertainment. We expect that this will provide much relief to the industry when it comes to the entertainment tax, while providing the same level of oversight as provided by the Department of Taxation. Thank you, and we look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you, Chief Fremont. Why don't you go ahead and sit there? I got a question for you. I don't want to underplay this. I certainly don't want to oversell it, but in your opinion, how big of a change is this? What's the industry going to say when they find out what you just said?
Well, this is a significant change for the industry. Right now, the minimum internal control standards provide control procedures that the licensees need to meet. So they are controls over the way revenue from start to finish is handled. In other words, they have to have specific controls over how voids are handled, how, you need a certain number of signatures. We tell them how to do all of their controls so that we have some assurance that the revenue is proper. These new guidelines are just going to be, they're going to basically be a requirement that they record the revenue, but we don't specifically tell them how to record the revenue. We just basically say you need to have it recorded somehow in some sort of summary. It gives them more leeway in how they're going to do this. And it also provides some guidance on how to handle package programs, which is something that the Department of Taxation doesn't deal with. So we've added that as well. But it's just minimal. You guys have to record your revenue and you have to have your reports so that we can come in and do a revenue audit, which is basically just looking at the revenue, making sure it made it to the tax return. But that big meat of the audit, the big meat of their procedures, which is to all of these, we're telling them how to do everything, is gone. So they basically decide how they're going to do it, and we just audit the revenue that comes from it. So it eliminates a lot of walkthroughs. It eliminates a lot of work on their side, especially for their CPAs and their internal audit people. They do not have to do any walkthroughs regarding to entertainment. They don't have to do any testing regarding to entertainment. So it's a significant change.
And just to be clear, you feel extremely comfortable that the right amount of tax will be collected under the new way in the same way it would have been in the old way, just a lot less steps.
We do. And so this was changed in 2015 where it went right to just admissions. Prior to that, it was food and beverage, and food and beverage would go in and out of entertainment tax status. It's where we found a lot of our assessments. So then you could have food and beverage the entire time it's open, but it's not subject to entertainment tax until the entertainment started. And so that's where we would find a lot of our assessments is they forgot to turn on the entertainment tax, or they turned it on too late. So we'd end up with assessments. So we did an analysis ever since 2015 where we went to just taxing admissions and food and beverage were no longer being taxed. And the amount of our adjustments and refunds have significantly dropped since then. So we feel that now the critical, that part where it's a high risk for error is gone. These are just point of sale systems, and they're no different than what you would have out in the non-casino world. So Department of Taxation deals with this stuff out in, whatever Area 51 or whatever venues they have. It's just a simple point of sale system. So it's just they're selling one thing. It's just admission. So I think the risk level has dropped quite a bit. It's significantly since they got rid of the food and beverage and the merchandise.
Great. And you use the word parity. I like that word. I think fairness too. You mentioned non-gaming establishments having LET collected and reviewed by the taxation department. You've got gaming establishments who probably have had to jump through extra hoops.
They have.
And so now we're going to have fairness across the board. LET will be collected by the taxation department, the gaming control board, but we will still collect the right amount of tax. And gaming establishments will not have to do more than a non-gaming establishment.
I do think so. And really the only difference now is just pretty much going to be the package programs. So, but we have guidance for the package programs and how to handle them. We're still going to review the package programs when we go in to do our work, but just a lot less work it's just a lot lower risk.
Great. And timeline on making this happen? I guess it's a question of how quick we can get it in front of a board, public agenda meeting, changing Reg 6, I assume.
Correct. So Regulation 6 will be changed for both the Group 1s and the Group 2s. And we will be adding wording that gives the board authority to establish guidelines and also requires licensees to adhere to those guidelines. So once that is approved by the commission, in conjunction with that, we will be issuing an industry notice that is also going to repeal the live entertainment mix, but also issue at the same time these new live entertainment guidelines. So it's all going to happen at the same time. So all the changes are going to happen and the licensees are going to be able to amend how they do things.
So depending on how quick the board can get it on its agenda, and then you got 30 days for the commission to have to act upon it after that, a minimum of 30 days, possibly early March or April, I'm guessing, right? And then the Nevada Administrative Code piece will be down the road a little bit, but will not stop this from actually happening.
Yes, and that's an interesting point because the NAC is going to take much longer to implement because it has to go through the LCB. So once that happens, it could take up to a year. At that point, that's where we are going to get rid of the requirement for licensees to submit their internal control systems for live entertainment. So up until that time that the NAC is that the NAC is amended, licensees will still need to submit their internal control systems related to live entertainment. But once that amendment is made, they will no longer need to submit IC systems.
Good. So we will work with the Attorney General's office to try to speed up that process as much as we can and get it to LCB as quickly as possible. So hopefully it doesn't take a year.
That would be nice.
That would be nice. Great. I like it. I like the headline. It says that the Gaming Control Board is trying to do right by the industry, trying to streamline things. And now we will get rid of actually mix. You're saying it'll be a review.
Yeah, we will not be doing a full compliance audit on it. It will be just simply a revenue audit. And really, this is a result of the evolution of the tax. It's evolved over the years, and it's time.
And when will you be able to show, is there something in wording that you will give to the industry? Or is this it? They're just being told this, and then they'll see an industry notice at some point, obviously.
So they'll see the industry notice, but I suspect we'll issue a draft of the guidelines. But there's nothing new in the guidelines. So the licensees will not be hit with any new requirements or even any new wording, really. It's basically just taking some of the things that we had in the mix that dealt with revenue recordation. That will be moved over to the guidelines. So it will be familiar wording to them. Everything that deals with the packages will be familiar. It's all the same wording. We're moving that over. So there's nothing new. There will be no surprises.
Wonderful. Questions from board members for Chief Fremont about this big news?
This is big news, as you said, Chair. Thank you so much, Chief Fremont, for all of your hard work and the audit team's hard work on these. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the changes, the increased efficiency, and decreased confusion. So,
thank you.
Just had a couple of questions on Formula One. Does that fall under the jurisdiction of the tax division or the Gaming Control Board?
Department of Taxation.
But there's a connection between Formula One and the casinos.
So the race actually occurs off property of a casino. So the Nevada Gaming Control Board only administers the tax to entertainment that occurs on the footprint of a gaming licensee. So since the Formula One itself was actually on the streets, it's the Department of Taxation.
Okay. And what about, I guess, the same thing for the Super Bowl?
Correct.
But there's quite an intermix between casinos and Formula One and the Super Bowl. I mean,
there is. So I see what you're saying by that. So let's say that Formula One had some event that's related to F1, but they held it on the footprint of the licensee and they charged admissions. Then that would fall under us, the Gaming Control Board.
So we would have jurisdiction over, say, Rod Stewart concerts in Caesar's Palace.
Correct.
And on each ticket, is there a certain amount that's set aside for the live entertainment tax when they issue a ticket?
Yes, it'll say what the tax is.
And then the players that are complimentary, the hotel is responsible for the tax, even though it's a complimentary ticket to the player?
No, comps are excluded from the calculation of entertainment revenue.
Wow, that's a lot of money. Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Great. Other than LET, Chief, is there anything else you wanted to tell us during the workshop today?
Nope, I think we're good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for the good news.
Thanks.
All right. Chief Linksavath, what do you got for the group today?
All right. Chan Linksavath, tax and license. Thank you, Chair, Board Member Watkins and Assad, and those in attendance. I wanted to, before I got into a lot of my stuff, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what she mentioned on LET that pertains to tax and license also, and we're going to repeal the ICPs and everything else is the same. You know, instead of mix, it would just be ICPs. So
As far as getting that notice out to the industry, I assume it'd be a joint notice that would go out to group one, group two at the same.
yeah, that's the idea anyway.
Great.
All right. And today with me, I have behind me Supervisors Jocelyn Mendez and Jess Cordial. And then I have Special Agent John O'Connor. And up in Carson City, I can't see them up there, but I know they're up there. DC Matt Wilkes and Supervisor Andy Lane. In the last board meeting, I already went through an overview of tax and license, so I won't duplicate that here. The only thing that I think, as you always say, Chair, is a big picture is the ICPs. I just mentioned it. We sent an industry notice out on November 16, 2023, and it was 2023-95. That's for the new ICPs that came out. The last ones were updated in 2009, so it was due. And those are for the group 2 licensee. So the mix is for group 1 and the ICPs are for group 2s. And the only overlap we have with that is the LET ICPs. We went ahead and changed it, revised it with not knowing the timeline for the LET things that Chief Fremont just mentioned. So once those get repealed, then our LET ICPs will also get repealed. But in the meantime, we updated it anyway, just in case the timing was off on that. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
The NAC cover, when we do the Nevada Administrative Code update, that covers the mix and the ICPs.
It does.
Good.
Yes, it mentions both of them.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Great.
And so right now for the ICPs, all the comments are due by December 15th, and that's to Supervisor Mendez. Emails fine, calls, whatnot. And we have a workshop that's scheduled for January 4th, 2024 to discuss that. That workshop, as it has happened in the past, may be canceled if there are no comments or all comments have been addressed adequately ahead of time.
What day was that?
January 4th, 2024. Is that what I said? Okay. All right. I might have messed that up.
Yeah, because the board meeting, I think, is the next week. So
Right. Yep. And so our hopes is that for the ICPs that it'll be effective June 1st, 2024. And then the compliance date would be August 1st, 2024. So meaning we have 2 months to kind of let people know what it is. And if there are any kind of issues in between those 2 months, there won't be any kind of disciplinary action or anything like that. It's just kind of like, we can help them out with that. And so
why does it take until June to become effective?
Well, in Reg 6100, they have these deadlines, and a lot of it has to do with the commission. And so, meaning once we approve it, if we approve it, we meaning the board and you, Chair, the commission has to also give some time for the public to weigh in. For whatever reason, if the public didn't weigh in during our process, they have another chance to do so at the commission level. And depending on if there are comments, that could get us all the way to June. So we just made it on the safe side and just made it June, regardless of what happens. So that gives everyone some time to kind of acclimate to it.
Great.
All right. And so all of that will be, we'll send industry notices out there to update everyone just to let them know on where we're at on that timeline too. So we expect at least 1, maybe 2 more industry notices to keep everyone updated on that. So that's it. That's all we have for big picture stuff. Any questions?
Great. Questions from board members?
Thank you, Chair. Chief Langsbeth, I just wanted to say thank you to you and the TNL team for all of your hard work on getting the new ICPs out. And you all have done, I know it's been a long time coming, you all have done wonderful work. And thank you for being such a pleasure to work with.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to echo the comments from my colleagues, and thank you so much for the good work you do.
Judge, absolutely. If it's been 15 years, I agree. It's time they were looked at. And so thank you and your team for going through them and updating them.
Sure.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe we had one letter that was submitted for purposes of this workshop. Chief Fremont, do you have that letter? I believe from Mohegan Sun. Is
I
that
do.
correct? Yeah. And did we provide copies of that? Great. Wonderful. Did we provide copies for the public? I believe we set them out there. We did. Very good. Great. Thank you. Yeah. Please come forward and introduce yourself, spell your name for the record. Since we don't have a court reporter, you can just put it on the video recording and tell us a little bit about what your public comment was for today.
Thank you so much. I'm Joe Hassan. Thank you. Chair Hendrick, thank you so much. I'm Joe Hassan, H-A, S as in Sam, S as in Sam, O, N as in Nancy. I'm the general manager of Mohegan, Las Vegas, and we're also known as MGNV LLC. That is our formal entity name, but our trade name is Mohegan Casino, Las Vegas. I come today firstly thanking the board for inviting the industry and inviting the public to comment. It is encouraging to me. I've been in Nevada since 1998. I've not taken advantage of this before. And certainly I wanted to extend my thanks for the opportunity to speak. So Dr. Watkins, Judge Assad, Chair Hendrick, thank you so much. Chief Fremont, I may be treading on your ground, so thanks for taking the time to listen. The comment that I come with today involves Reg 5 and specifically 5.225. It involves wagering accounts. And wagering accounts, let me start right from the top. It's reflective of good public policy. The regulation is designed to protect the public and to encourage public trust for those that have value, what I would describe as parked at casinos in Nevada. With regard to the details of the regulation, licensees are obligated to report to the board and specifically to the audit staff the adequacy and continuing operation of either reserve cash, instruments that protect those monies that are on account with a licensee, or any of the numerous vehicles that help to preserve that public trust. And I'm confident that licensees routinely report and recurringly report in a manner that conforms to the regulations. Inside the regulation, there is an element of relief, and it surfaces in 5.225 20, I have to peek, 20H, yes. And that relief allows a licensee not to reach first to a certified public accounting firm to attest to what it is that the licensee reports to the board, but instead, if the licensee's internal organization is sufficiently broad enough to separate duties appropriately, the licensee can take on that attest function directly without using a CPA firm. If I can add for the board, I am a CPA. Now, I should say I'm a retired CPA. I don't practice any longer. My license is in good standing, but it is an idle license. So I bring a particular passion to this, and I did not just want to send a letter to the board. I wanted to bring my face and my voice to it, and I hope you can hear my passion today. When we put that information together month by month, we deliver it on a timely basis to a CPA firm. The CPA firm, due to the timing requirements of turning it around quickly, getting it back to us so that we can meet a 10-day window obligation to report to the board, they quickly ask us to do things like put together a representation letter, attest to our own attests, take all the accountability and responsibility for what it is that we are giving to them. They review and perform their procedures on it, turn it back to us. We pass it on to staff at the board, and we move on to another month. My recommendation to the board is to allow licensees to take, I want to describe it as full advantage. I don't mean it in a way that is undue, but to take advantage of the relief that the existing regulations provide for. And that is, if a licensee for 12 consecutive months, in good standing, in good order, in good timeliness, reports the appropriate information to the board, and the board finds that in good order, then please allow the licensee to request the relief under 5.22520H, such that the chair could then approve the licensee's self-reporting. So what's the real commerce in this for me? It's self-interest. I pay, and again, remembering that I'm a retired CPA, I pay a sinful amount of money to a CPA firm to attest to my attest. And what I ask is that the staff, particularly audit staff, I know looks at this first, and the board thereafter takes the opportunity to allow the relief that is provided for by 5.22520H. Today, my understanding is that there is an undefined timeline associated with when that relief could become effective. I think protocol calls for, at some point in time after a full audit has been conducted by staff, then a licensee could request the relief. I'm suggesting that, as described, after 12 months of reporting in good standing and maintaining all the expected requirements of the regulation, that a licensee could request and have an opportunity to seek that relief that the regulations already provide for. And I'm certainly open to questions.
Well, first of all, Mr. Hassan, let me thank you for being here. Thank you for submitting written requests. I'm sure that made it easier for our people to review it rather than to hear it flat-footed today. And thank you for taking time out of your day to come over and join us and present this. This is a little deeper in the weeds than I get in the audit department, but I do have a couple general questions I'd like to ask you, and then I'll probably turn it over to Chief Fremont and her team to ask you questions as well. My first big question would be, you know, the regs in place. There is a way, as you said, usually after an audit, to say you can get relief from it. How are the state taxpayers and the industry protected if we did it in your 12-month scenario? Where's the upside? Where's the downside from a regulator and a taxpayer, tax collector process?
A very fair question. And let me answer it, of course, from the perspective of my role as a licensee and as a citizen of the state.
Perfect.
Someone,
both hats. Great.
yes,
Thank
someone that believes the regulation does right by the public. We maintain currently at my business irrevocable line of credit, which is in favor of both the board and the commission. At their command, they can draw on the line of credit, which is affirmed to the board annually each time it is renewed. If for some reason it were to fall out of effect or out of favor, the bank through which I bank must notify the board of the either interruption or end of that irrevocable line of credit. That protects the public in terms of the existence of that instrument, because again, the instrument is in favor of the commission and the board. I simply pay for it through the bank. Very appropriate in terms of public policy and the structure of it. That might leave open the question of whether or not that letter of credit is of sufficient value at any moment in time, and that's what I attest to month by month by month. To the extent that the great state of Nevada and the board and the commission entrusts licensees to do right and reserves the right to call them out when they do wrong or if they stray, this seems to be not much different than any other public trust that is vested in my business and in my personnel. We take great pride and great care in conformance with regulations, compliance, building an organization that includes our own internal audit functions, having external auditors also on top of the internal audit function, and maintaining a governance of our organization that is in the best interest of our company, but concurrently in the best interest of the regulated industry with which we are privileged to be a member of. So in that regard, I think the structure is built in a manner whereby if the trust that we have to deal a straight game, to operate a square slot machine, to do all the things that we do throughout the ordinary operation of a privileged business like a casino, provided that we continue to do this, this particular regulation fits nicely into what it is that we are already tasked with and which we are always subject to affirming conforming, and attesting to as part of the ordinary operation of our business.
Well said. Let me ask you this. I haven't gone back and done any of the research on this, obviously, and I don't know if you have, but do you know why the rule would have been put in place? Obviously, all regs are there to protect the industry and the state of Nevada. Any particular reason why you think this is put on the industry?
I have had conversations, Chair, with staff members of the audit division. They're very cordial people. They are fabulously helpful. They've dug me out of holes on a time or two, particularly related to entertainment tax. So I'm very appreciative of what I heard just a few moments ago. I'll tell you a story about that as time permits, but I don't know the full history of it. I read the regulation plainly and say, well, relief is available, but what it does not say is when is relief available. The regulation is not that specific. So absent that, my understanding from cordial conversations with staff members of the audit division is that protocol over some long period of time has created a scenario whereby a full audit of a licensee must be behind the licensee before that relief will be considered. Now, again, as a longtime member of the industry, I question constructively, not critically, I question why. I'm trusted to do many, many, many things within the four corners of my business in a privileged industry where I hold a privileged license to exercise due care and to conform with regulations. I view this in the context of what the board has asked for today, a public workshop to ask perhaps, is there something that we might do differently that would be in favor of the interested parties? And I view this as vanilla. I see it clearly through my own prism that all the good things that we do to maintain a sense of compliance, conformance, and good standing fits squarely into this, given that the regulation for relief already exists. Now, I'm sure those that have been on the regulatory team for many, many years and decades might have more history as to why. Why does it protocol-wise exist the way that it does? And the relief is not readily reachable until an undefined period of time into the future.
Yeah, and your question of why is the same question I have been asking since I've been here for 10 months with a very open mind. Is not just because we've done something, why are we doing it? Why have we done it in the past? Why are we going to do it in the future? So certainly appreciate you being here, and that's exactly what we're here for. Chief Fremont, I don't want to hit you flat-footed. I know you've seen Mr. Hassan's letter. Is there something you want to say publicly about this today of why the reg is necessary for the board, why we do it, and how does it protect the industry in the state of Nevada?
Thank you, Chair Hendrick. I suspect the reg is there because this is a reserve regarding patrons' wagering accounts. So it is, it would be a huge black eye on our industry if we ran into problems with the deposits of our patrons. So I wasn't involved in drafting this regulation. I wasn't involved in the beginning of all of this, but this is what I suspect. The one thing I can say is that I think what you're looking for is a change in our internal policy, because the way the reg is written right now, it actually affords a licensee the opportunity to submit for relief whenever. From day one, they could. So our internal policy, we take into account, we like to see an audit. We like to get through a full audit, but we also take into account how well we know the licensee itself, right? How much interaction have we had with this licensee in the past? What is their record of compliance with us? And I'm not sure, do you guys have another property? I should have checked that before I came here.
Not in Nevada.
So we don't have a lot of familiarity yet with you guys. And I believe we may have just performed a review out there, I think, but
I believe the
The limited
First,
reviews?
the first contact with audit staff,
Yeah.
I believe, was called initial contact.
Yeah.
I may have made that terminology
Yeah.
up. And then there was an interim contact that followed that. Now, again, looking through my prism as an ex-CPA whose expertise was audit in those days in my profession, the length of contact was substantial. The breadth of what was the scope of the audit was substantial. And I'm not second guessing or questioning, other than I realize there is some other definition of full audit, but to the extent that gaming taxes were examined, to the extent that LET was examined, to the extent that conformance with mix and six was examined, and constructive comment was provided. We responded instantly to that. All of that, again, through my prism, felt as if it was examination to the extent that examination would be called for in those circumstances.
So what we did is, for a brand new licensee, after 6 months, we go out and do what we call a 6-month review. And that is the walkthroughs, like you talked about. And we do 1 day of testing, and we test the revenue from the source documents through the tax return for the first 6 months. But we only do the 1 day of testing. There are some procedures that are not performed on a review. And the other thing that we may have done out there, you said we also had an interim contact out there, which is basically just walkthroughs where we talk to people, right? Not a whole bunch of examination of things. So right now, the regulation does not prohibit you from requesting this relief. And if you were to outline the fact that you are a CPA, it's something we might take into consideration. But I fear that by putting the 12-month in there, now we've limited, because if, let's say, you opened several other casinos years down the road, and we look at you and say, oh, we've never had a problem with their casinos. It's the same people that are running it. If they want to get started, it's our prerogative to say on day one that you don't need, that we could give you this waiver on day one. So I think by trying to change the regulation, we may limit ourselves in the future, especially when you're better known to the industry.
Well said. And in my written commentary, I suggested that there might be 2 ways to do this. One would be to change the regulation to allow for a 12-month window and then some element of affirmation thereafter. Or secondly, to simply change not the regulation, but the protocol of how the request for relief is considered. Now I truly feel as if I'm telling tales, and I don't mean that to be the case, but since we're all sitting together, Chairman, as you suggested in the beginning, I have submitted previously a request for the relief. It was recommended to me cordially, very cordially. The staff member that I work with is fabulous. I'm telling you
I think I know who you work with.
Yes, I work with a fabulous person that guides me in a terrific manner and in a fair manner with regard to all matters reserves. The request was made of me to withdraw the request, and I complied with that. I was fine with that. And when I saw the agenda and the notice for this particular session today, I said, oh, here's an opportunity to surface the question again.
Yeah, I really do suspect that since you're kind of new to us, we really don't have a track. You don't have a track history with us, right? So I would prefer to leave this open, because with licensees that we've worked with for 30 years now, and we know very well, we may want to from day one say, yeah, you can have that. And like I said, years down the road, you guys may have another casino. We may know you very well, and we may decide, yeah, we can go ahead and issue that right away. So I think the wording, I would recommend that we leave the wording as it is, and get to know you better.
I appreciate that.
I want to ask, there was a comment about attesting to your attestation. Is that really what it is? Is that what we're protecting? Is it a CPA firm is paid to attest to what the licensee is telling them that they're attesting to?
Well, they're taking a look at everything and making sure that their calculations are accurate, that they've done it correctly.
They're doing their job. They're getting paid to be the CPA firm. You mentioned, though, there's a letter of credit on behalf of the board. How do we make sure that that is adequate. To your point, we don't want a black eye on us in the industry if somebody didn't have the proper amount of reserves. Is that really what you're asking the CPA firm is to say, is it accurate what the licensee submitted? And then we're going on the fact that a CPA firm is saying they agree?
Yes, I think I understand what you're saying.
So rather than just the licensee saying, I swear to you that I have significant amount of money on reserve, I've got a line of credit, and everything's available to the board, we then make them go to an outside CPA firm to agree.
Yeah, to review all of that. And again, I think it's just because of the significance of the liability to the industry, to the patrons, and what a black eye that would be if that wasn't accurate.
At the risk of saying this in the middle of a public meeting, you've got the licensee saying that everything's okay. They pay a CPA firm to say, is everything okay? And the CPA firm says, yeah, everything's okay. But the CPA firm only got the information from the licensee and it still wasn't okay. Did we save the black eye, or did we just get 2 layers of protection?
Liability.
Black eye.
Well, I mean, it's something to take a look at. We could take a look at it. There's a lot in 5225 here. Yeah. It's paragraph 20, and it's the reserve requirements for licensees. And there's all the way down to HIJKLL. There's L amount of things that the licensee needs to be doing, and that the independent CPAs are taking a look at. We can definitely take a deeper look into this and think, and maybe there is a different opinion as to what really is required here. And I mean, it's something we can discuss internally and have a discussion about.
Yeah, your point's very valid. It's not just that the CPA firm is looking at H. They've got a lot that they have to do in a test too.
Yeah.
And I do agree.
I think it would need a deeper dive into the entire reg there.
It's a very long reg. You can tell it's been added to over the years. A lot of things have been bolted on. And after hearing Chief Fremont talk about the 12-month, I think she's right. And just listening to this in the middle of a public meeting, if we put 12 months, it might not serve the greater industry because now we've put a hard deadline. And it could be like, wow, why do I have to wait 12 months? So interesting, but yeah, again, appreciate you bringing it to us. And I think the idea of you continuing to work with our audit division, and I will tell you this as well, if you need to bring something to the board's attention, there's no problem doing that. And everybody in all the board divisions are told that that's not any negative to them. It's not negative on the industry. It's just sometimes things get stuck in a pipeline, and it's up to the 3 of us to decide, can we kind of push it through the pipes?
And Chair Hendrick, I know that inherently.
Great.
Since 1998, when I first came to Nevada. I have reached to the Nevada Gaming Control Board innumerable times for staff's guidance, counsel, help. And where I have questions at any of those intersections throughout my career in Nevada, I have found nothing but good help when I pick up the phone
Great.
and call, particularly members of the audit division staff.
And would you be willing to identify the agent that is so helpful to you regarding reserves?
Certainly would. It is Wendy Bulware, and she's fabulous. Just fabulously helpful. And I want to tell you the most important thing about this, just anecdotally. If I call and her voicemail picks up, I say, "Hi, Joe Hassan, Mohegan Casino, Las Vegas. Please reach back to me at your opportunity involving," typically it's wagering accounts. And it never takes 24 hours. She calls back, "Joe, what can I help you with? Mr. Hassan, what can I help you with?" And it is terrific to have that kind of responsiveness from members of staff.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And for me, on the record, I'm happy to always say this, that the agents here are the ones who do the yeoman's work. They're the ones who know better than the three of us will, and because they're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. And so guess who we're going to rely upon and who we're going to trust and who we have to protect. But that also gives them an opportunity. I'm telling the industry to bring things to us. I'm also telling the board agents to bring things to us, because sometimes they're just said, I've been told by my supervisors that I have to do these 5 steps. And they're being told, well, come to a board member and ask us. If you can do it in 3 steps, great. We save the taxpayers some issue and we save board agents time. So certainly appreciate you being here, and I appreciate Chief Fremont and her staff willing to continue the conversation. And maybe that whole section of the regulation needs to be looked at. Is that something we need to send to an outside CPA firm, require the industry to send to an outside CPA firm? Maybe we need some of it, but we might not need all of it. And that may help some of your buildings.
I appreciate the time, and thank you again for taking the time to listen.
Yeah. And board members, if you had other questions, Mr. Hassan.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. So I do have one question, and it's my understanding that by its nature, this request would be limited to newly opened casinos. Is that correct?
I assume that is the case, Dr. Watkins, that that a new licensee does not have the opportunity currently to reach for that relief of 5.22520H.
And that would be according to our internal policies, not the regulation. Is that now your
That
understanding?
is my point. Yes, that the regulation does not state that,
Mhm.
but internal protocol and past practice of audit division staff members has led to that.
Okay,
And again, my understanding only, of course, equally appropriate to ask that of the audit division.
absolutely. And that's what I'm about to do. So I'm interested in understanding, I guess, Chief Prima, how many of these requests, especially, since the nature, his request is limited to newly opening casinos, how many of these requests are we seeing? Or, I mean, you may
I'm
not
going
have
to
an
defer
answer.
to Deputy
Okay.
Chief LeBlanc because he oversees Wendy, so he may have a better idea.
We don't, Deputy, Deputy Chief Rusty LeBlanc, we don't get a lot of these requests. Actually, if we do get one of these requests, it's usually from like an affiliated property or from ones that have operated properties before. So a lot of times they come in, they're pretty much cut and dry, and we process it pretty regularly. From newer licensees, we don't see these quite too often, at least from while I was been over it. So they're not a lot.
So typically the requests are coming from well-established.
Yeah, mostly coming from
licensees.
well-established licensees that's been around for a while, and they have other affiliated properties or they're as a like a license.
And do you have an estimate of like maybe how many of these we're seeing a month? So, or
They're couple a year, if that.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's not like
Okay.
every month or anything. Like
Okay.
no, they're pretty much far and few apart.
Okay, and so it will probably be even more limited as it relates to newer licensees. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, please.
So, Agent Bulwer had provided us with, she provided me with really what she looks at to make a determination. And she does this in conjunction with Rusty. But she's looking to see, is the licensee a new property or have they been in operation for a while? Is the licensee an affiliate of properties that we have previously approved to use licensee personnel to prepare the monthly report? And if that's the case, that's going to be a no-brainer if they have a good track record. The experience of the individual who will be preparing the monthly report, and did the licensee have any deficiencies? And if so, did they promptly report to the board within the required 24-hour period? And did the deficiency reverse in a reasonable amount of time? So these are all reasonable things that they look at. So she doesn't just look at it and say, well, we need to have a full audit cycle. It's one of the things she would like to have, but these are the other things she looks at as well to take into consideration. So again, that's why I think putting that 12-month limitation on there might limit things further.
Thank you, Chief Fremont. Just off the top of my head, my thought is, kind of as I suggested earlier, is that, it may just be an internal issue that we deal with internally internally as opposed to a reg change, especially since it affects so few licensees. And in addition, given, what Chief Fremont has been saying pretty much throughout, and that we have that flexibility and discretion. If we know a licensee and they have other properties with us, well established here, then we, you may be asking for a request again in the future and be more well established, and we can make that decision internally.
Thank you.
And I want to echo the comments about Agent Boulware, and thank you, Chief, for going through all the points that she looks at. Very good, and congratulate her on being the expert in this area. One other question I did have, you mentioned the letter of credit. It may be something that we can look at, that if the letter of credit is high enough on a consistent basis, maybe you as the licensee can decide which costs more. Your letter of credit cost is going to go up if the board says we're only going to be comfortable at this level of a letter of credit. There's a cost associated with that versus your CPA monthly costs. And then maybe it's an evaluation that we can add to Agent Boulware's list of reasonableness when we look at these.
Understood.
Yeah, great. Judge, do you have questions for Mr. Hassan?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thanks for being here. I wish more people from the industry were here. It's always good to have input from folks like yourself and bring these issues to light. The reserves, you're running the, it used to be the old Hard Rock, now the
The old
Virgin
Hard Rock,
Hotel, right?
yes, it is now Mohegan Casino, Las Vegas.
And you have other properties in other jurisdictions?
In other jurisdictions, yes.
Roughly how many?
The flagship is Mohegan Sun, Connecticut. We operate a casino in Pennsylvania. We operate a casino in New Jersey. We operate 2 casinos on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, and we operate a casino in Washington State.
Multi-million-dollar property.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So have you ever had a situation where you didn't have enough reserves?
I am not familiar with the other properties falling into that condition, nor am I aware of whether their regulations in those other jurisdictions call for the kind of protection that Nevada calls for. I can tell you that in all of my experience in Nevada, again, since 1998, I have never been at the helm of a casino in Nevada whose reserve has fallen below the required amount to safeguard the deposits in place by the public. I want to add one footnote to that. And Chief Fremont, again, Wendy helped me with this as well. When we first opened Mohegan Casino Las Vegas, we did not initially establish a reserve account, although we were allowing guests to bank slot winnings on their club card. When we saw, whoops, we need to immediately put this in place, we did. So with that one caveat or footnote, we are fully compliant with the regulation.
The CPA firm that you had to hire, roughly what do they charge?
I engage the firm that I used to work for. It is Deloitte, and plus or minus, I spend about $40,000 per year to engage them for this particular examination. That is far more narrow than the broader scope examination that they perform of the Mohegan Tribal Gaming Authority, which includes my business.
The Betfred is your sports book over there?
They are the operator of the sports book. I am the licensee. Mohegan is the licensee.
So when all the folks come in and put money on deposit, we're talking several $1 million? Probably?
It is typically not several million. The highest I can recall that value climbing to is approximately 1 million. I maintain today a irrevocable letter of credit that is 1.25 million. And typically, if there's such a thing as me striking an average in my head, I consume at any month end, I might have anywhere from $700,000 to $800,000 to $900,000 outstanding against that $1.25 million letter of credit.
Exposure and losses, you mean?
It would not be exposure to losses. It would be, and Chief Fremont, steer me back on track if I go off track here. To the extent that I'm protecting unpaid winning sports tickets. The guest is a winner.
Right.
They've simply not redeemed their winning ticket yet,
Mhm.
or to the extent that I'm protecting value that has been received principally in the sports book for futures wagers. There is no outcome yet because the sporting event has not taken place yet, but I have the money in my possession for a wager that has already been placed. Most of the value that I'm protecting is sports related. A very small fraction of what I'm protecting the public involves slot value that is on the customer's club card account. Very small fraction of the overall value. So most of it is sports related.
And the million or so that's on deposit, what happens to that money? Does it just sit there, or is it commingled with other money?
That money in our business is homogeneous money. Once we have the value, it is in our ordinary books, records, and bank accounts.
Mhm.
It becomes homogenized. But of course, any good double entry bookkeeping system can segregate it from an accounting point of view. And what we report internally first every day, because the regulation requires us to do this every day, our internal staff, our accounting staff, produces reports that are viewed every day by the chief accountant, our director of finance, by my office, myself directly, and by our chief compliance manager internally at our resort. We look at it every day saying we are conforming and in compliance. If we were to fall out of compliance, we would immediately notify staff of the audit division to say we have fallen out of compliance and here's what we will do to correct it. At last year's Super Bowl, I was skittish. I thought I may break through the ceiling here in a bad way. I may have more on deposit or either futures wagers or unclaimed winning tickets than I have outstanding letter of credit in favor of the board and the commission. So I immediately contacted my treasury partners at Mohegan at their headquarters and said, increase the letter of credit immediately. I picked up the phone, I called Wendy, and I emailed her saying, I have not broken through the ceiling. I'm fearful that I might. I'm immediately increasing the outstanding letter of credit in favor of the board and the commission. And Judge Assad, the way that letter of credit works, the terms of it are such that I can never reduce it, but I can increase it upon my command to the bank and paying the appropriate fees to increase it, but not to remove it and not to diminish it. That is anything in that regard would be right reserved by the board and the commission.
Gotcha. What other improvements to Reg 5.225 would you suggest besides the one you mentioned?
Judge Assad, that was the only one that was top of mind for me. We are what I would call a compliant house. We look to the regulations. We take them seriously. We take them for their word, and we take the steps necessary to make sure that our staff understands and complies. This one is the one that has personal economic interest because of the value that I pay to a CPA firm, where I could, in accordance with the relief regulation that already exists, I could perform the work internally. And let me add for the board members' understanding, and Chief Fremont, I think you'd appreciate this as well. If I were to do the work internally, it would be handed to my governance department that is actually in Connecticut at our headquarters. That is internal audit and corporate governance, all matters compliance. They would handle it. And organizationally, in terms of segregation and appropriate separation of duties, they work with me hand in glove, but I do not have authority over them. I can ask them, please help. I can ask them, please pay attention to this. Please give me an assist on that. Please consider risk reward of the following topics, but I can't direct them away from a topic that interests them. I could readily say to them, please perform this test for us on the same good basis that would be done by an outside CPA firm. And they are duly qualified to do that. From, again, through my lens, from my perspective, they are well qualified to do that. And I do have internal audit personnel from their organization here in Nevada in my offices all the time, full-time internal auditors. I take them under my wing, say hello to them every day, just share, everything of interest, but they do not report to me directly, even though they are embedded in my business local here in Nevada.
Gotcha. So in addition to the letter of credit, do you have bonds also to cover excess?
We do not maintain bonds in this case. The letter of credit meets
the bond.
It meets the requirement of the regulation. And again, to the extent that it is written in favor of the commission and the board, I believe I'm certainly not the beneficiary. The beneficiary is the board and the commission. I believe I am simply administrative in that agreement to cause it to be paid for and to exist, and to cause it to climb if I direct that value needs to be higher.
Can you give me a ballpark range
in terms of
letter of credit?
Yes, that letter of credit today is $1.25 million in favor of the board and the commission.
And if you see a need, you can bump it up to 2 million?
At next business morning, I can contact the bank and say,
I need more.
As quickly as you can move it. And I've done that several times. I think that when we first opened, I initially, because the sports book was not in operation at that time, I think I initially established that letter of credit at $500,000, and I've increased it in several steps since then. And again, with that one whoops moment that turned out not to be a whoops, but I was fearful of the Super Bowl and the timing of the weekend and how many either unpaid winners might there be come the end of the game, or how many future wagers would build before the game. That's the one where I called Wendy and said, I'm immediately making a change. I'm giving you advice of it. While I've not broken through the ceiling yet, I am fearful that I might, and I'm taking immediate action. And that's what the regulation calls for as well. Immediate action if you fall into some disarray relative to the requirement.
Sure. And have you heard of Mattress Mac?
I do know Mattress Mac. Yes, I've taken his action before.
I was going to say, so if he comes in and wants the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl, let's say 7-1, he puts down $1 million, you would immediately up that line of credit?
Yes.
Letter of credit?
I would, but let me add a footnote as well. The first question that I would ask as the general manager is that action that we should take on our platform. First, it's a question of risk and reward relative to gaming. Do we want that element of risk and that size wager? If the answer to that were yes, I would immediately say, I got to increase the value of that letter of credit.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
Assuming a deficiency in the reserve account, according to your proposal, would it be your department or the internal, or would it be your governance department that would be self-reporting to the board?
Dr. Watkins, I would view that as my obligation immediately, because in the manner that we prepare the internal records today, it calls for an accountant in our audit department, not internal audit, our finance department, day-to-day revenue examination and reporting. Each day, 7 days a week, they produce a reserve report. That person who prepares the report signs it, indicating that here is today's work, sends it out via a routine email distribution to my director of finance, that's my chief financial officer, myself, and my compliance manager. If I were to see that on any day where there was a violation or an insufficiency of the availability of that letter of credit relative to the amount of public trust money that is in our possession, I would immediately take the steps to contact the bank to increase the letter of credit and to contact the board's audit division to tell them I am out of compliance momentarily. I am immediately taking steps to cure it.
Thank you for that explanation. That's appreciated. And when you make that request to the bank, is that response immediate?
It is timely, but not immediate. So in practical terms, if I were to see this condition, for example, on a Saturday, I open up Friday's results that have been reported to me by my internal accounting staff, and it's a Saturday morning, and I'm sitting at home. I'm not in the office yet. And I see I've got a glitch where I've broken through the ceiling inappropriately relative to the amount of the letter of credit and the amount of public trust money that I'm in possession of. I would immediately act by email to first advise my treasury colleagues at Mohegan that the letter of credit must be immediately increased. Now, if it were Saturday morning, that business transaction would actually transact on Monday. And I would expect that, given that I've increased the value of that letter of credit several times over the course of my my general manager responsibilities at Mohegan, it would typically take the next business day to increase in value. But I would immediately act on it by email and then affirm by voice on first thing Monday morning. I'm dealing with a bank on the East Coast because Mohegan's headquarters is in Connecticut. So the moment I wake up, I would affirm by phone call as well. But I would also immediately on Saturday advise the audit division that I am out of compliance and here are the steps I'm taking to cure.
So during a weekday, is that request still fulfilled next day? Or?
I would expect that virtually every time it would be fulfilled next business day.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to echo, I think, what Chairman Hendricks said earlier about 5.225. Looks to me like it's been a hodgepodge of different administrations, gaming boards and commissions who have pieced it together. It took about 20 minutes to read it. I think it was 5 pages long. I'm sure you're familiar with it too. Would you recommend a thorough review and maybe cleaning it up a little bit?
I would take the approach, Judge, that this is an internal protocol matter for the board and its staff. So in my written material, I said, I see 2 ways to cure this. You could change the regulation, or absent a change to the regulation, you could change internal protocol. If I could reverse roles and say, okay, the task is left to me to fix or cure or make better, I would change the internal protocol, but not change the regulation.
I haven't seen that letter. Could you get that to me?
I sure can.
Thanks.
Again, Mr. Hassan, thank you for being here. Thank you for being so open with our conversation today. It's very kind of you to be on a public record and have such an open conversation. So we appreciate it. Working with audit, we'll continue to look into your particular issue. But again, thank you. And if you got anything else, certainly let us know.
Thank you so much. I'm going to waste just 1 more minute of your time, if I may. And I told you that not only is the audit division pretty fabulous when it comes to helping with this topic, backing up to LET, when my business partners on the hotel side of the resort, which would be Virgin Hotels and the landlord, JC Hospitality, when they first launched entertainment, I wasn't initially in the loop. And at that time, the regulations, as best I could interpret them, called for the licensee to be on top of the resort's LET. And working with Shelley, I said, holy gee whiz, and that's not exactly what I said. I said, Shelley, holy gee whiz, I need help, and I need it as quickly as you can provide it. And she said to me, Joe, what can I do to help you? And I realized that when you're in the queue asking for help, there's lots of licensees asking for direction, assistance, guidance, clarity. Turned it on a dime and said, you're good to go, start to sell tickets, your internal controls are approved, and quick turnaround. So it's that kind of working relationship that causes me, having worked in New Jersey, having worked in Illinois, Missouri, Louisiana, California, I'm leaving out half of them, Mississippi, Northern Nevada, Southern Nevada, Laughlin, Lake Tahoe, Las Vegas. I love Nevada because of the relationship with the regulatory staff. They're there to help. I can't say that about every jurisdiction I've ever worked in.
That's great of you to say, and we completely concur. Since I got you, and I'll keep you on the hot seat for 1 second more, you heard what Chief Fremont said we're going to try to do with LAT. You've been here for 25 plus years. You've gone through a lot of iterations of LAT. Any headline comments you've got on hearing that now gaming establishments will be treated the same as non-gaming establishments for the work that has to be done?
I would tell you, as a licensee and as a taxpayer in the state of Nevada, you're on the right track to make that clearer, define the lanes, make it clearer, and to the extent that the Nevada Gaming Control Board can step out and the Nevada Division of Taxation can step in, that seems to me to be the right direction.
Or at least take the same number of steps to get the same answer. Don't put a higher burden just because it's a gaming establishment.
Correct.
Same tax, just two different agencies should take the same number of steps.
Agreed.
Appreciate it.
Thank
you again. All right. Anybody else from the public wishing to provide comment regarding anything regarding audit division or tax and license division standards, processes, or procedures? Seeing nobody here, let's check Jesus to be sure if anybody's in Carson City and wants to ask any questions or provide any testimony. Not seeing any, but it's a sunny day in Carson, so that's good news. All right. Anything else from board members that you'd like to add today?
Nothing further from me, Chair. Again, I'd just like to reiterate my appreciation for our audience showing up today and for the work of our audit and tax and license division. Thank you all so much.
And I would just like to commend the audit division and Ms. Fremont and Mr. Levanksworth, tax and license, for the outstanding job they do each and every month. They really make us look good when we may not deserve it.
Absolutely. And so we'll be looking forward to seeing those reg changes, hopefully on our January agenda regarding the LET, the ICPs. Chief Links of that, keep us posted whether or not the January 4th meeting happens. And anything else you or anyone in your divisions wants to add today?
Nothing here for me.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Again, I echo the comments of everybody today. Thank you to all of your agents. And this is, I think, our 5th or 6th one of these public workshops we've done. This will probably be the last one for the year, maybe the last one in this format for quite a while. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all the agents at the Gaming Control Board across the state of Nevada for everything you do. As the judge says, makes us look very good. So we appreciate that. I will jump in then to our last section of our agenda, which is public comment section. Again, this item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so. Comments by each person are limited to 3 minutes. And I will turn over to Carson City. Thank you, Jesus. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to make public comment today? Seeing none, is there anyone here in Las Vegas willing to or interested in making public comment? Close our meeting. Seeing nothing else, again, thank you all for being here in person. Thank you for all watching, and this will be recorded for open meeting law purposes if anybody wants to see it down the road. With that, that closes our workshop today, and we are adjourned. Thank you all.